Welcome to Family Gamer TV. Now, if you've tracked with the channel, you've probably heard of this game before, JS Joust. It's rather unusual. It's a game that you play with PlayStation Move controllers, but it doesn't use the screen. But I'm excited today because we've got Doug Wilson, creator of the game, with us. So rather than me explain it, Doug, maybe you could give us a potted introduction to what is JS Joust.
So it's a motion control game, but it's almost more a playground game than it is a video game. So everyone is standing around in a circle, maybe 2 to 7 players, and they're all holding this motion controller in their hand. The cool thing about this motion controller, it's got a big light at the end of it, this PlayStation Move controller. If your controller is ever moved too much or it shakes too much, the light flickers and goes out, you're out, you sit out the game, and the goal of the game is to be the last player remaining. And so, of course, what happens is people start approaching each other and trying to push the other person's arm or their controller to make their light go out. So you're kind of standing back and maybe attacking others, and it becomes this physical game of balance and position. And it's all set to JS box music. And when the music is slow, the controllers are very, very sensitive to motion, but sometimes the music speeds up and you can go a little bit faster. So it's using like multimedia and music to kind of set the mood and also to set a pacing to the game. Instead of focusing on a virtual world inside of the screen, which is what a lot of video games do, bringing that play to the physical world in front of the screen and getting people to look at each other.
And it feels like it's a game that gets a strong reaction. I've run it myself at various sort of arts festivals and even in a church actually in the UK, and people are always fascinated by it.
What's cool was one of the goals of the game was to make a really spectator-friendly game, and that's the music and the lights really help add to that mood. So you can often get a nice, if you're at a festival or a party, a nice crowd, like a circle surrounding the arena of play and people cheering. And because the rounds go pretty quickly, you pass off your controller when you're out and people get involved. If
you're playing on a PlayStation 3 or off your Mac, you can set up with 7 players. That's how we usually do it. But it seems like you've got some clever ways to extend that. Yeah, so it's quite a shame. The Bluetooth hardware spec only lets 7 devices. So that's why PlayStation only supports up to 7 controllers. But what we've been doing is we could network multiple computers together, and so I've run the game with 18, or maybe the highest we've ever done is 26 players. Wow.
It's a very, very technical setup, and it's a little wonky. We're still working on, we're hoping to open source the game later or some version of the game later this year. And so we're still hoping to get a more user-friendly version of the kind of multiple Bluetooth dongle setup. You can do teams in the game because everyone who on the same team has the same colored light. So just having this big LED light where you can set the color of it lets you do all sorts of small gameplay modifications.
So you know who's in your team because their controller is lit up the same as yours.
And then you can do even like crazier stuff on top of that. So, for example, I have a traitor mode where one person on each army is secretly a traitor, and so let's say I'm on the blue team. My controller looks blue, but at the beginning of the round I get a rumble on my controller which tells me that secretly I'm actually a traitor. And so at any time in the round I can start backstabbing my team, and I only win when I defeat everyone, including my team. And we have stuff like invincibility, where if you press a button your controller turns white, which is never used for any of the player or team colors, and that means you can't be gotten out for about 2 or 3 seconds. And so again with rumble and light and music, there's all sorts of really small little extensions you can do, and that's kind of I think the joy of these motion control games, that you take a really simple, accessible idea, and with even just like a few base elements of like button input, rumble, sound, light, you can really do a lot with that. Yeah,
I've run the game with traitors quite a few times, and that's always really popular. And I love the moment when one team is left, so only one colour is left in, and because the game's not finished, you know that one of them's a traitor. And my experience is that they end up almost stopping the physical side, and they start talking to each other and saying, no, I can't be the traitor because I got the so-and-so out, and I think it's them. And it almost becomes like a parlour game as you sort of shift in gear.
And that's, I grew up playing Werewolf, getting people to play not just physically but mentally, and so that's kind of one of many inspirations behind it.
Because you can play Joust on different formats. To start with, PlayStation 3, you can play 7 players.
Yep.
And that means, I think, does that mean you can also do invincibility and lives, resurrection, which we've not talked about?
There's a bunch of different small modes that are available on all the platforms, more or less. The other thing about PS3 is you can use a DualShock.
Which is nice, isn't it? Because you don't necessarily have 7 move controllers.
Yeah, the PS4 one's a little nicer because one, it has a light on it, and 2, it has sound. So actually, the DualShock's the only controller where you hear the explosion noise when you're out, or some of the other game sounds from the controller itself, which is really nice. I really wish the Move controller had a speaker on it. That would be really nice.
Yes, which takes us to the PS4. So you have a better controller, but you can only play with 4 players.
Sony only allows the 4 controllers, which is a shame.
Okay.
The other limitation about the PS4 is you can't use load your own music, which you can on the PS3.
Like, from a commercial perspective, was it a profitable enterprise? And I mean, was that why you went into it?
Well, it's definitely not why I went into it. I think it's a shame local multiplayer, for a lot of reasons, especially local multiplayer games where you need this kind of more specialized controller, is difficult to make serious money on, especially when you're only an indie. If you're Harmonix and you're manufacturing plastic guitars or something and you have a big marketing budget, I think you can get away with more. But that said, I think we did okay for ourselves. I didn't lose money on the project, and that was the only goal, to kind of do this thing we loved and get enough compensation to do it not at a huge financial loss. So in that sense, it was really successful, and we're pretty proud of it. And we feel really lucky about that. And without the Kickstarter and some of this other stuff, we could never have done it. So our fans have been really good to us as well.
Is it possible, or would you think about other platforms? It feels like if it ran on iOS, it might be quite portable, and if it maybe came to the Wii or the Wii U, it might be a bigger market.
I think we've thought a little bit about the Wii U. I'm still not sure how well indies are doing on the Wii U in general. Again, the issue becomes, is the cost of porting it, can we at least break even with that? Or not burn out trying to do it. So I'm kind of waiting for the day that either smartphones get a little bit more robust, or one of the console manufacturers kind of makes a new interesting motion controller, or some toy comes out where there's a perfect controller for it. It'd be, whether that's a year down the line or 10 years down the line or whatever, I could imagine resurrecting the game where it makes sense. But for the time being, motion control has died a little bit on all the major platforms. Like, the Kinect is basically dead. Sony doesn't do that much with the Move. There aren't many more motion control games for the Wii, so it feels like we're in this period now where people have given up a little bit on motion control games.
Yeah, because I think in families, that sort of local multiplayer and anything that works in a single room is still as popular as ever if you get the right delivery and the right formula. But I think often it's easy to go after a more core gamer and to stick with your online multiplayer and those sorts of features. You very rarely see even split screen adventure games, sort of first person shooters these days. It all seems to be online, which to my mind is a bit of a shame, because I like playing in the same room.
Yeah, me too. Again, I think it's because indies don't always have the kind of the mind share and the market share to kind of break over the hump and kind of make that profitable. Like, Nintendo is still doing a lot of games that work great, local multiplayer, look at Smash Brothers or Mario Kart or something. But they also have the kind of, the size and the scale to do that. And
in terms of the games you look around that other people are making, are there things that in the last, say, 12 months that you've been impressed by, or you think it is sort of indicative of where things are going?
Yeah. Hard to say indicative. If I think about local multiplayer specifically, and kind of, party games, I think, Space Team, which is an iOS game. It's less physical and more about yelling at kind of a collaborative effort where you're trying to coordinate, but it's very hectic.
Yeah, I'm laughing because my kids play that, and you have to warn everyone else in the house that they're about to do it because it gets so loud.
Yeah. And so that, I mean, that's not quite new. I think it came out 2 years ago, but I really admire that game. I think that's a really good example of how using smartphones in a really clever way to make this really fun social experience. In terms of local multiplayer, Samurai Gun, which is for 2 to 4 players and is out on home computers. I think it's eventually coming to PS4, but it's not out yet. But that it's just extremely, again, a pretty simple and minimalistic, but an extremely well-designed samurai game. I think it's one of the best, most engaging indie local multiplayer games of the last few years. So that's we still play that one a lot here in New York. I mean, in terms of other genres, there's a smartphone game called Desert Golfing, which I think was, for me, my favorite video game of last year. It's very simple, but kind of deceptively simple. There's all sorts of weird things that you discover as you play it. Very meditative game, and I really like that these very minimalistic, simple games, but that over time reveal their elegance and their replayability, which, I guess is not so different than JS Joust, right? This pretty simple but very replayable game that has a kind of elegance to it. So maybe that's just part of my aesthetic. It's
great to be able to finally talk to you in person here.
Yeah,
get the lowdown on all these different versions of Joust. I mean, just in wrapping up, do you have one place or time when you play Joust and it's your sort of favourite moment?
No, too many. Although, one thing that stands out is in 2011, I think, we took the game out to Death Valley in the desert. Just some friends and I, and we played it into the night. It was just really beautiful, kind of with music and the lights on these sand dunes, out under the stars. So yeah, that was one of many great highlights.
Yeah, because it works really well, doesn't it? I often, if I'm asked when I want to play it, I usually say at dusk, and if I'm setting up in a festival, because then as the light falls, it completely changes, and you just see these lighting up controllers moving around. It's funny, and people will often ask me. They sort of say, "Were these controllers designed for this game?" And you're like, "Well, no, they were there already." But I think it's good because it feels like almost every aspect of that Move controller is a perfect match for JS Joust.
Well, I think that's the key designing, especially motion control games, which is designing, letting the controller inspire the design, and really trying to make the hardware itself a really integral part of the experience, rather than kind of just designing this game on paper and then, forcing the controller in to make it work with it.
Great, well, it's really good to talk to you in person, as I said.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'll look forward to watching to see what comes next when you're ready to draw back the curtain. But thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.